Today I'm discussing abortion as an issue in modern American Christianity. Abortion is still one of America's most hotly contested debates, and it opened up an avenue for evangelicals and their voice to be heard in political debates when in 1973 Roe v. Wade was passed by the Supreme Court. While this was not the intention of evangelicals in the abortion debate, it ended up having broader political implications for evangelicals than the moral issue that abortion raises. Daniel Degnan, a Jesuit lawyer and professor, authored an op-ed in 1973, not long after the Supreme Court ruled on Roe v. Wade, and he entitled this "The Supreme Court as Moral Arbiter." In this article, he wants people to understand that abortion's legality through the Supreme Court should make people wonder at the power the court has in deciding an issue of morality. And he wrote, "In the court's peculiar language, when the fetus has the capability of meaningful life outside the mother's womb, the state's interest in potential life is compelling enough to allow the state to go so far as to prescribe abortion during that period, except when it is necessary to preserve the life or health of the mother." He finishes his article with, "And this is why the decision is not only shocking, it reduces us. We are not children, and the Supreme Court is not our moral arbiter." Degnan makes a valid argument for the morality judgment the court made in the case of abortion and what actually constitutes a right to meaningful life. Degnan brings up a valid point, and it's one that evangelicals in some shape took on during the time. The documentary from PBS called God in America described evangelicals at the beginning of the 1960s as having been ones who stayed isolated, set apart away from the rest of the world. However, as Pat Robertson said in his interview, the hippies, the drugs, the free love, they had started to change the way evangelicals viewed their purpose. So in other words, they had to do something about the culture because it would affect their children, and they didn't want their children to be part of that lifestyle. So Francis Schaeffer and Jerry Falwell are examples of the broader implications of abortion and the effect it had on evangelicals. Jerry Falwell, in his autobiography, said he had spoken out on abortion before Roe v. Wade, but had never actually done anything about it. As he stated, the Catholic Church had taken a bold stand against abortion. However, fundamentalists and evangelicals had stayed ever so quiet. Dr. Francis Schaeffer was writing articles at the time Falwell would begin to do research on his own on the implications of abortion, and Schaeffer was discovering and expressing the implications of an abortion-endorsing society. What was a game changer, if you will, for Falwell with abortion was his realization that Scripture was to be applied to all aspects of a Christian's life. He describes it this way: "Never during the founding years of this great democracy had our forefathers meant to distance the government from the truths of the Christian faith or to prohibit Christians from applying biblical principles in their influence on the state. I had misunderstood the separation issue. In fact, it was my duty as a Christian to apply the truth of Scripture to every act of government." Falwell and other evangelicals who dare take a stand on a biblical basis about abortion or any other matter in relation to Christian values was not to speak without a cost. In a scathing article written in 1981 by Russell Chandler for the Washington Post, he called out anyone and everyone in their criticism of humanism. He called out the new right's intolerance of humanism. And however, he did quote Tim LaHaye, who was a pastor and founder of Family Life Seminars, and said, "Either God exists and has given man moral guidelines by which to live, or God is a myth, and man is left to determine his own fate. Your response to either position will usually determine your attitude towards such issues as abortion, voluntary school prayer, pornography, homosexuality, capital punishment, the priority you place on traditional family life, and many other social problems." LaHaye points out that Christians hold certain views depending on their view of God, which ends up requiring a particular lifestyle to be lived out because of those views. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind." And John 17:19 says, I gave them your word. The godless world hated them because of it, because they didn't join in the world's ways, just as I didn't join the world's ways. I'm not asking that you take them out of the world, but that you guard them from the evil one. Thank you.